No matter where the first Jewish immigrants to Washington began their journey, the land they found was far different than the one they left. Colville, Dayton, Republic, Walla Walla, Marcus. These were mining towns or places along the route to the big strikes. After the 1849 California gold rush, all roads led north for the few who wanted more or the many who didn't strike it rich at all. The first Jewish immigrants to Washington Territory established themselves in eastern Washington, but they were not miners. Rather, they stayed close to their old country roots as itinerant peddlers and shopkeepers. In 1869, one such merchant, Bailey Gatzert, was sent by his Schwabacher in-laws from Walla Walla to Seattle, a backwater of less than 1,000 people. Here Gatzert opened a branch of Schwabacher Brothers and became one of the town's most successful early settlers. In 1876, he was elected mayor, and he wasn't elected on the ethnic vote, for the entire Jewish population came to hardly more than 100 people. Their ranks included the owner of the San Francisco store and his future partner, merchant Ferdinand Toklas, the father of Gertrude Stein's companion, Alice B. Toklas. Seattle continued to grow, and the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in the mid-1880s dramatically increased the city's population. But it was the Seattle fire in 1889 that drastically altered the city's physical landscape. In the words of Rudyard Kipling, it was as if a great black hand had risen from the sea and left behind a blackened ruin. In the aftermath of the fire, tent businesses quickly sprang up. The Schwabacher Brothers' wharf was the only one to survive the fire. Practically everything else had to be rebuilt. With the discovery of gold in Alaska, whole new markets were opened. To cross into the Klondike, miners were required to carry 1,000 pounds of provisions, and Seattle merchants, including Cooper and Levy, felt duty-bound to convince the prospectors that Seattle was the last place they could buy their supplies. From 1881 to World War I, in a period of only 33 years, 1/3 of all Eastern European Jews left their homeland in response to persecution and poverty. This wave of immigration totally transformed cities like New York, but Seattle, with its railroad link to the East Coast, also became a final destination. Life was more difficult for the new arrivals than it had been for the first Jewish settlers. Nonetheless, many of the new immigrants managed to establish retail businesses: clothing, furniture, dry goods, shoes, notions, and always more clothing. Other stores, like Weisfield's Jewelers, seemed to transform itself almost yearly until it was known as the ultimate in contemporary store design. Groceries and one of Seattle's first health food stores, Mosler's Health Products, also made their mark. Retail, however, was not the only occupation. Other sorts of business ranged from the Alaskan Copper Works to the Milwaukee Sausage Company. In 1902, another distinct wave of immigration began. This time, the immigrants came primarily from Rhodes and Turkey. These Sephardic Jews traced their roots to the Jews expelled from Spain in 1492 during the Spanish Inquisition. Unlike the German and Eastern European Jews, called Ashkenazi, who shared a common language of Yiddish, the Sephardim spoke Ladino, a Judeo-Spanish language. In fact, when the first Sephardic Jews arrived, the Ashkenazis questioned their Jewishness because they did not speak Yiddish. Like previous immigrants, the Sephardim had to carve out new trades while they acclimated themselves to a new language and culture. This generation of immigrants established fish markets, produce markets, worked in coal bunkers, shined shoes, and worked on the waterfront. The Sephardim, like the Ashkenazis, mounted plays and costume dramas at Washington Hall, which was at the heart of the Yesler Way neighborhood. In fact, though there were certain basic divisions between the Sephardic and Eastern European Jews based on different Old World cultures, the geographic center for both groups in Seattle was located in the Yesler Way Cherry Street neighborhood. Here one found Jewish restaurants, grocery stores, delis, and butchers. The Talmud Torah, which provided Jewish education, was also in the neighborhood. In fact, the expansion of the Jewish community as a whole was mirrored by the growth of the Talmud Torah. The most important aspect, though, of the Yesler Way district and what lay at the literal and figurative heart of the area were the synagogues. Benny Pertika, the architect who over a 50-year period designed many of Seattle's synagogues and the Talmud Torah, was also well known for designing the Hollywood Pantages Theater and Seattle's Coliseum Theater. Pertika also designed the Orpheum, which in the late 1920s featured the work of Seattle composer Al Hoffman, whose parents ran a deli on Yesler Way. Hoffman, a Tin Pan Alley composer, wrote Merzi Dotes, among many other songs. Social life for the Jewish community was obviously often connected with religious events such as Hanukkah and Passover. But through the years, a picnic was always a picnic, whether it was just friends, a B'nai B'rith group, a company outing, a Zionist group, or the workman's circle. Social events were also one of the ways that Jewish immigrants adapted to a new culture. Company dances, university orchestras, the neighborhood restaurant and tavern, and marching in parades were all ways that made contacts in the new country easier and made life more fun. Yet there were also substantial barriers. Anti-Semitism was a fact of life. The Glendale Country Club was formed in part because Jews were no longer admitted into other exclusive Seattle private clubs that actually had early Jewish settlers among their founding members. Discrimination, however, did not slow assimilation. The public schools were the big force for the children of first-generation immigrants. The children learned English more quickly and easily than their parents. Equally important, the children were part of a larger non-Jewish community during the school day and at the playfield. For the adults, Settlement House provided entertainment and classes in English and culture that helped integrate the immigrants into the larger society. Assimilation, though, planted the seeds that with the passage of time led to the loosening of ethnic bonds and eventually to the dispersal of an easily identifiable community. Religious connections, however, held the community together in other basic ways. Today, there's still a strong Jewish community, even though it is not visible in the same way that it was during the first part of the century, when the immigrants stood apart because they spoke Yiddish and Ladino and lived in the Yesler Way district.